Hello, everybody. I'm Joe McGovern, awards reporter here at TheWrap. We are happy to have you here for our awards screening of Darkling with writer-director Dušan Milić. Darkling is Serbia's entry for the Academy Awards. We're going to show you the trailer for the movie, and then we'll get into a conversation with Dušan. And for our audience, please take part in the live stream of the chat and share your thoughts about the film and let us know where you're watching from. And now, before we introduce our guest, let's take a look at the trailer for Darkling.
Imam 11 godina I živim na Kosovu, ali ne u kući u kojoj sam rođena. Naša je bila u drugom selu izidane od cigle. Posle dešavanja u martu ove godine ostalo nas je samo 6 u školi. Svi drugi su otišli.
Mama, šta se desilo? Stani!
Spokojte se I odlazite odavde.
Vlast koja je zadužena za nas kaže da se ne brinemo jer nas oni čuvaju.
Čuo sam sve što se desilo, evo.
Ti misliš da će ljudi da ostanu ovde za tvojih 5 metra žice?
Potreban si nam ovde, ne smiješ nikako da odeš.
Od Uskrsa nam struja sad ne staje svaki dan. Noću skoro više uopšte ne spavamo. Veliki je strah među ljudima. Oni ne mogu da nas zaštite od straha. Niko ne može.
Welcome back. I'm happy to introduce writer and director Dušan Milić. Hello.
Hello, Joe. How are you? Thank you very much for having me here in this conversation.
Oh, pleasure to have you, and thank you for joining us. And excited to talk about this movie. Everyone just saw the trailer, so we got a little glimpse of it. But it's a very mysterious film, and so and it's a film that we love to talk about, movies that blend genre. And here we have a movie that we can kind of tell from the trailer is taking real life events, but also mixing it with the suspense and horror. It's also seen through a child's point of view, a lot of it, it's sort of a genre of itself. So I wanted to have you, in your own words, explain where the ideas came from, and perhaps talk about a thing that we actually see happen in the movie, a little girl writing a letter, actually to a big name.
Yes, you're right. So that was my inspiration when I read that short writing of one very small girl, in that time. It was like 2015-14 when I got this idea. And I found out in an article in newspapers, about the girl who wrote a letter to the president of Serbia in those times. That was like 20 years ago, about the hardship of living of children in a Kosovo enclave, that's a southern province of Serbia, where the war is taking the stances, from very long time, and when I read that letter about that letter that little girl wrote to the president of that time, it was very touchy and emotional for me, very, very touchy, so I immediately just figured it out that I need to make a movie about that, It's about very hard living of children in the 21st century, who are hiding in the cellars, hiding of the bombs and of the weapons and the war complete war, and it was very, very emotional for me. And that's how I started to write the script.
So, it's very touching to know that it does come from this real thing of this girl. But what was what's your personal, either as a citizen or just as a human, your personal engagement reaction to the events that the film depicts?
It was me, like it was Dušan, like a human being, so I could not stand reading the letter of a small girl, who was at that time 11 years old or 12 years old, about how she's hiding, in the cellar in the darkness, hiding to put her face up, because she was hiding of the war, of the consequences of war. And it was a theme. It was a subject for Dušan as a human being, not like a Serbian director or whoever, or the director who wants to put the right of children in front of the camera. It was just a matter of Dušan, like a human being who wanted to tell a story about one very endangered and frightened little girl who were 11 at that time.
Yeah.
That was my idea. That was the whole story about this under this film.
And as you were writing it and conceiving the story, you must have realized, I'm curious to ask you about the resonance that a story like this has, because we watch it and it's set in a very specific time and place, but it could be World War II, it could be Ukraine now. I mean, you realize as in making this, you are telling a universal story. Was that a part of the what was going on in your head as you were conceiving it?
I didn't know about what will happen, in the future with the Ukraine and Russia and everything else. This film came out just 2 days before the war in Ukraine started. We started on 2 days after. We started on 26th of February, and 24th of February started the war in Ukraine. So I didn't know that. But I was developing this film for a very long time, and I think that all wars are the same. You have people suffering in that wars and people who are, it's always, for me, it's always about the people who are suffering. So from this point of view, I wanted to tell a story about denied childhood, about lost childhood, about one little girl who is 11 years old, who might be maybe in one day, next Maria Curie, or whoever,
Yeah.
but that she didn't get a chance, to become such a person. That is what is my story is about, and that I'm all concerned just about that.
So would love to talk more about the methods that you wanted to employ in storytelling here, because the movie is about this little girl's fear, and actually also it's about her hope, but the way that fear comes across on a movie screen usually is we in the audience also experience what she's afraid of. How did you determine the right tone for the amount that you were going to put in there of this mystery outside of the gates of her house, and how you wanted it to come across as a film that can be described in a way as having horror elements?
It was just a trial and error task, for me. I didn't want it to put it, so obvious in the beginning when I started to work in this film, and to be frank, I didn't know what I can expect from little girl, first timer in front of the camera, so I didn't know what to expect. She was 11 years old when we started to shoot, So it was just a trial and error, trying different things, but the most prominent and the most direct idea of mine was that I wanted to talk about this I wanted to talk about this innocent children that are taking place that taking roles in a kind of war, so it's always disturbing and always so emotional for us, let's say mature human beings, when we see little children suffering in a difficult times, that was my idea, that was my human idea, about making this film, that's how I started to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of these two opposite emotions, right? That she is going to experience here, the fear and the love.
Yes, the fear. Sorry to interrupt you, but the fear is the theme of this. It's the very core of the subject of this film. The fear of something that we don't know. We cannot emphasize. We cannot comprehend what is happening with us. But the fear is always with us. This fear, it's a kind of idea that who controls the fear for life controls the life itself. That was my idea somehow in the very beginning.
So I wanted to talk about the language, and we see the great poster there behind you, and that's the film is called Darkling in English, and pronounce the word on the poster behind you for us.
Yes, in Serbian language, it's very simple word that is the title of this film. It's called darkness, not darkling, but darkness. Behind me, you can see this word in Serbian language that means darkness, not darkling. But because English language is so subtle, there are a lot of synonyms, for different things, I wanted to call it darkling because darkling is something that arises from the darkness, that's something that we cannot see, that we cannot understand, but something that arises from the darkness where we cannot penetrate with our eyesight, that was my idea. Why darkling?
Yes. I want to talk about the language in the film because there is some English actually in the movie as the American soldiers come into the village, but there's also a lot of scenes without any language, just the visual. I'm thinking of a moment when the little girl, beautiful sequence as she goes through the forest, and also as her grandfather he thinks he sees things, and your camera just holds on the trees, and we don't know how long you're going to keep us there, but then it just keeps going, and I love this kind of filmmaking. But what about that? What about letting the images tell the story in a lot of ways as opposed to the language?
I think it's a substantial thing for filmmaking. You don't speak in film with words, but you speak in film with pictures. And I knew from the very beginning that I will not have a lot of words in this film, so the words are not important here. Just maybe a few informations, and that's it, The picture is the most important thing. This is for me, the movie making is a visual experience, So when you see it, I want to be there, when you see the film, I want you to be there, not just to imagine to be there, but I wanted you to be there in this very house, in this very cellar, in this very household, So that was my idea, and I started to build this kind of visual experience from the very beginning, without the words, So I don't think that words are so important here. I wanted to make this impression of this horror and this fear of darkness and that fear of invisibility, I wanted to fear that to audience to feel it from their seats, while they're in the cinema, not to explain to each other what is happening.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Hey, I made it.
Danica, I was wondering
Hi.
if you can talk a bit about your first conversations with Dušan about the role, and what did he describe to you, especially in terms of the tone that this film was going to be? What genre did he describe it as?
What did he describe it as? I think he put a lot of weight on the kind of, not the horror element, but the kind of psychological thriller of it, of being stuck in almost this claustrophobic room with only 2 other family members. And that he was talking, I just remember that fear was like the kind of the main theme. But I would say the psychological thriller with horror elements, I remember him saying. Yeah.
And if you can, maybe just describe what it was like to shoot the film. Obviously a small cast, not a very big crew, I would guess, in the era of COVID, we're still kind of in, and this village, this sort of almost, it's a mysterious place. We noticed that right away. The forest all around. What was the filming of the movie like?
It was very intense. It was very hard and very challenging. I mean, for the first thing I want to say is this was my first movie in Serbian, because I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark. So for me to, as soon as I read the script and met Dušan, I was, got in love with the kind of universality of this story, that it's, so much, it could take place anywhere in the world, I felt. And then coming down there, it's south of Belgrade. I hadn't been in this area of Serbia before, actually. And seeing, we drove from one village down out in the kind of in the woods. It always took, I think it took 1 hour each day to get there to location. And I was just mesmerized by the whole scenography. The set design was so real. So it was very easy to kind of get into the circumstances, of the war, because it was so scarily real, but it was hard in the sense that, we're out in the woods, we're in a very remote place. But of course, all of that helped for us to really live it,
Dušan, I wonder if you can comment on that as well. The idea that maybe mention even your production designer, because this is a film that could have been done on sound stages and everything built. But I think that as Danica was just saying, there's something about letting the actors experience what the actual characters will go through. Do you want to talk about how you found the spot and what your conversations with your designer were?
Yes, it was it was like a fourth actor of the film, this production, this set that we found. My production designer is very experienced guy who did almost like 150 films before this one. So he's really, really experienced. And we knew from the very beginning what we are aiming for. We did a lot of research, and did a lot of preparations, to find the place. And he built it, from the scratch, this house. And when he was working on the set, I worked with Danica and with Slavko, the main actor, the grandfather. We worked together for 2 or 3 weeks, on the set, to prepare everything, to prepare the blockings and the shots and everything else, so it helped me a lot in that process. But this guy, production designer Mile Jeremić, he did a really, really great job, because he put something new for all of us, in this situation, in this filming spot, because when he did the production design of the set, I think that we myself, Danica, and Slavko, we knew immediately how we have to behave in that set, how we have to proceed, with the blockings and everything else, So it was a huge help for me, from my production designer to that he did such a great set for this film.
Do you have a very close relationship with your cinematographer as well?
This is my first time that I worked with Kirill, a Bulgarian cinematographer, but I found him, through a lot of research, because we had this co-production with Bulgaria, and my Bulgarian co-producer, sent me a lot of CVs of and works of lot of Bulgarian directors of photography, because I wanted to have a Bulgarian director of photography for this film. And I found Kirill, who I'd liked a lot. He's a little bit younger than me, but he's very experienced, and I think that he did a great job for this film.
Wonderful. Yeah. Very
It was a really technically challenging film, because we were working on a very, very low level of light, every day.
Yeah, of course, right. So Danica, we were talking about the fact that so much of the film is told visually. I mean, there is dialogue, of course, and you have some, but there's also times where you don't have that much dialogue. What is that like? What the challenge does that present to you as an actor, to know that this is where the story has to be told, really?
Well, I thought it was a beautiful challenge, and it kind of, that's why I think the rehearsals were so important, and that's why I think the set design is so important with this movie, because all of the emotions that we need to portray they have to come through the actions. Trying to keep a normality and trying to keep a routine in a house that's falling apart. So it was a beautiful challenge to actually be forced not to say so much, but to to express it through actions in and around the house. And it really gave a very strong inner monologue. I would constantly have to know what I was saying in myself and to my father and daughter without saying it, but saying it through my actions, and that's a beautiful challenge, I think. Yeah.
As we were discussing the set, I couldn't help, I'd love to, for Dušan to talk about Alfred Hitchcock. And I don't mean to say that this isn't your film is very inventive, but the master, of course, of suspense, of bringing people into a small space and then seeing what happens there, playing with the audience. Maybe talk about that, and also if you wanted to bring up any other influences from film or art or books that got into your head first and then somehow get their way out onto the script.
For me personally, Hitchcock is the father of cinema. For myself, he's the best. So I learned a lot of from his work. And he will be always my number one. For me. But there are of course, a lot of influences for this film as well. From Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs or. John Carpenter's, Assault on Pressing Number 13 or something like that, But Hitchcock, for me is the man who is doing the films the way that I love, so that I like. So he said one time, that it's like films are pieces of cake, it's pieces of cake, and you exclude all the boring moments from that story. That's how I started to write the script about, thinking about him all the time. And when I was working on the set with Danica and Slavko and Miona and the actors and all the people around, I was always thinking about how Hitchcock will do it, in this moment. That was my guiding idea.
Yeah, I actually have a picture on my wall I wanted to show you. This is Jimmy Stewart in
the Rear Window.
Well, I wanted to show you that because he does what you do so well here too, which is he involves the audience.
That's the most important. Sorry, Joe, but this is the most important. This is if you don't have an audience on your side, while they're watching film, you have a bad film. Then I think so.
Yeah, and there are ways that as a director, there are ways you can accomplish that by putting us into the same point of view, so we get to kind of observe and experience. And you also withhold information a lot. How does that also sort of strengthen your storytelling?
No, it's like when you have a story, and when you involve audience in your story, you don't tend to tell them too much, because if you tell them too much, they will be bored. And if you tell them a little bit, less than too much or less than much, you will feel stupid, So it's all the time, just walking on this razor blade, if you're telling to your audience a lot or not enough, but you have to be very precise there and very careful. That was my idea all the time, and I kept that in my mind.
Yeah, I was hoping for both of you to talk about the two other actors in the film, but especially, I don't want to mispronounce her name, but Miona.
Miona, yes, that's right. You're right, Miona.
Please let us know, because I mean, she's the film really does. Without an actress like her in that role, you can see the whole film falling apart and not quite working as well. She's so important. The face. What was it? Is she an actor? Is she previously experienced, or was this her debut?
No, and you're right. Without her, the whole film would fall apart. Even with Danica and with Slavko, they are great actors. But if we missed the little girl, everything would fall apart. She's not an actress. She was 11 years old in that time. I found her with my casting director. We were traveling all around Serbia, trying to find a little girl for the main role. We had like 100 girls, in audition for this role. And at the end, after 3 weeks or 4 weeks of traveling and searching and everything else, we found her, and I'm very satisfied. I think that Danica thinks the same.
For sure.
What was it like to be co-stars, to be sharing these scenes together? And was it very important that, again, the rehearsal process for working with a child?
Yes, actor? For sure. It is definitely with child actors, but she was completely open and so curious. And, it was really hard scenes, and the scenes in the basement, and it's very action-packed scenes with a lot of emotions, with a lot of fear. And she just went into it very openly and totally cooperative, and very, very impressive. Yeah. And we had a lot of fun between takes as well.
Good.
In the middle of the woods.
Well, in a way, you have to, right? Because
of course, too light. Yeah, you have to, for sure.
Dušan, when you were looking at all the various girls to cast, how important were her eyes?
Yes, for me, the face of the actors is the most important. That charisma, that they are bringing in to a picture, So I was really, really afraid when we started to shoot the film, because Danica and Slavko, two main actors, and myself, we were having rehearsals on the set, in the house, do the blockings and everything else. But I was really, really afraid to involve little girl Miona in those rehearsals, because I thought that she might be, just thrown out, or bored, or whatever. So we never involved her in the blockings and in the rehearsals for this film. We did all the blockings and all the rehearsals with Danica and Slavko, and then afterwards, the first day of the shooting, I just put her inside of the frame, and I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
But when I saw her eyes and when I saw her reactions to Slavica and to Danica and Slavko, it was completely, it just opened to myself, that she's the one, and I need her, and I need to guide her, from frame to frame. And we were just speaking, like, because I'm a father, so my daughter is much older than Miona in that time. I try to speak with her like a father and to direct her from shot to shot. Not to explain to her too much about emotion that she needs to live through, but just to make her comfortable in the atmosphere that we were preparing for the day of the shooting, And then, because she's very intelligent girl, I'm talking about Miona, she's very intelligent girl, and she, just find the right way and the right path to follow me in this direction.
Wanted to also definitely not spoil anything about the ending of the movie, but I've always been such a lover of films that end by just presenting us with a character's face. I just think it's a wonderful way to summarize all we've seen before, and especially if the actor, as Miona, has a face that we really want to study. So without, I guess, again, I don't want to be in the position of spoiling, but do you want to talk about maybe the power of the close-up and what your choices, what your thinking was about using a close-up to end the movie?
Yes, this very last shot for me is the most important shot.
Yeah.
When I'm doing films, the first one and the last one are the most important. So this one I didn't have, until the very last day of the shooting. And it was a really, really, Danica knows that it was a really terrible day, shooting day, because it was like a 50 degrees Celsius degrees,
Very hot, very hot.
Very, very hot. And we were like 15 of us in that back of the transporter, trying to make this close-up work. And we were shooting, and this close-up was like 25 minutes long, this one. And I cut it, in this 25 minutes, I cut it in 2.5 minutes, something like that, But I was very afraid, because in that moment I didn't have the ending of the film. I didn't have the conclusion of the film that they wanted to have. And Miona gave me everything, because we were at the end of our strengths, for this film. It was very last day of shooting. And she gave me, this something that when I stepped out, let's say 3 kilos, 3 kilos left from me, from that that shot, that we were shooting for a half a day, But after we came out of that truck, I was very satisfied, and I knew that this shot will be the crucial one, for the film. Without this shot, we will not have a film, And I just said to her, Miona, just concentrate to watch my hand. And my hand, I was waving with my hand behind the camera, and I was just aware that that she don't need to blink in that shot, you know. And of course, it is very difficult and very tough not to blink for 3 minutes. You know, she did blink one time, you know, but that was perfect for me. So this the last shot, you know, explains the whole film. I think, you know, in my opinion, you know, that's why I put that song over it, you know, just to emphasize the meaning of it at the end.
And did you explained to her that you wanted her to look at the lens?
Yes, my hand was just right beside the lens, you know, and I just have told her, you know, just to watch my hand, and I were just waving, you know, just to have this her pupil, you know, pupils to go left or right, you know.
Yeah.
How I wanted to do it, you know.
Well, I mean, it's certainly it's extremely powerful, and like I said, I think it's a kind of like what Hitchcock would do. It's a way to challenge the audience a little bit. You know, as the film is ending, she's looking at us. So wonderful. So I wanted to, with the time we had left, to also get you both to talk about this very famous actor, Slavko Stimac.
Stimac, yes. He's a very, very famous actor in former Yugoslavia. He appeared in a lot of, you know, for a lot of legendary films. You know, one of it, you know, probably knows, you know, Cross of Iron from Sam Peckinpah.
Mm-hmm.
When he was a very young guy, he was like 15, 16 years old then. But he's a really, really prominent actor in Yugoslavia, in the whole region, you know, and he's very respectable. And this was my first time working with him, even though I know him for 30 years or something. And I think Danica had a really good experience with him. I think so.
Definitely, it was very easy to love him. He's very, very lovable. He's, I think, one of the biggest hearts I've ever met, really. So it was very easy to call him father in the movie.
Yes, and he's a really good actor, I think.
Yes,
you know?
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And also the
Big
fact
support.
the fact that he's so experienced and such a veteran actor, and that, you know, so you had a non-professional in The Little Girl, and obviously other Danica as well is experienced, but he must have been a nice sort of anchor there, someone who's seen it all, I'm sure. You know,
he started to act exactly at the same age like Miona. You know, Miona was like 11 years old, and Slavko started to act when he was 11 years old. You know. And imagine from that time, that was like 1971. From that time, he hadn't had a break for a single year, you know, not to have a role, you know. So even if it's in a series or films or theater, whatever, you know, but he's working constantly for 60 years or something, you know. So, and he was a really, really great anchor for little girl, you know, because he started as she did, you know, and he was kind of support, you know, like a grandfather figure in this movie making process.
I wanted to also bring up probably, you know, the most famous filmmaker from your country is Amir Kusturica, who's also an actor. He's a very good actor. He's won the Palme d'Or at Cannes twice. Not many can say that. Yeah, 2 times.
Yes.
For 2 great masterpieces. And your relationship with him, both as an admirer and also as a colleague.
You know, we met each other a long time ago, you know, when I was a really young guy, when I was 23 years old, student of film directing, you know, when I wrote in that time my first script. And it happened that Emir Kusturica filmed his famous underground film, who did Palme d'Or that year. So he was filming that film here in Serbia and Belgrade. He was living in Paris, in France, that time. And I just met him, I just passed to him, my script, and he liked it a lot, and we became somehow, like friends. And he wanted to produce my first film, and it was like 20 years ago, and we are still in good relationship right now, So I tend to learn a lot from his work, He's like a big teacher of mine about filmmaking, So I'm following some rules that he, put in my head,
Yes.
So, and I think of him as a filmmaker all the best, I think that he's one of the best European filmmakers, of all time.
Yes, and he still has a while to go. I mean, he's not done yet.
No, of course not. Of course not.
So also, I wanted to bring up and congratulate both of you on the selection.
Thank you very much.
The international film, and that's like the reason that I'm lucky enough to chat with you because of that selection. So tell me how it feels, and maybe both of you could comment on just the wonderful privilege to be selected, and also the fact that no matter what happens, the film will be seen by more people.
For me, it's a huge privilege. I mean, for me, as I said, this was my first. It's been a dream of mine for many, many years since I finished theater school in Denmark to get a role like. I mean, I couldn't imagine a role like this. It was really a dream come true to this being my first Serbian part, because I grew up with Serbian parents in Denmark. So I've always had that dream of when will that the right project come up that kind of opens up for the Balkans, and so I'm so proud of our work, and I'm so deeply honored to be a part of it, and proud that it is where it is now.
It's for my side as well, I'm very proud, to be here, talking to you about this, that we are in this international race for the Oscars. I was really privileged to work with Danica, we didn't have a chance to work before, but it's completely different experience for me, when I started to work with Danica, because it's something completely new, in terms of Serbian way of filmmaking, so I'm talking about the actors as well, so it was a really great privilege to work with Danica and with Slavko, on this film. And I think that we are all privileged to be in a kind of, this race for the Oscars. We don't know how it will end. We know that we are coming from a small country, from a small production, but I think that we have a good film at the end.
Yeah, of course. And so lastly, Danica, we were discussing before about how this film is set in a specific place and a time, and yet, really, I mean, it could be a lot of places and a lot of times. I mean, you think of
Exactly.
of so many things when you watch this, and including current times. I mean, the film, as Dušan mentioned, it was only 2 days. It came out 2 days after, or 2 days before the beginning of the war in Ukraine.
The invasion, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So your congratulations, you're pregnant and you're
Thanks.
soon to have a baby. But so I've mentioned that only because to ask you about what do you want this film to say to the future, to the people who are going to see it, not just this year, but many years ahead?
Well, for me, it's exactly what you're saying, that it's a universal story of, of a family in a complete extreme situation, which is war. And in those times to remember, the love between people and the humanity and all this distress and these extreme situations, and my character being a mother, having her own, I mean, she's in she's having to make a choice that's just inhuman. Is she going to stay and risk all of their lives to take care of her father, or is she going to risk her and her daughter's life by trying to, you know, go into some unknown future to run from her home, you know. So it's a you know, it's a story on, in a way of, yeah, of how to survive in war, basically.
Yeah.
Which
Which
I really hope will, you know, I think that's the beauty of this film, that it's so you know, it's so yeah, that it's so universal, and that we never see the enemy. It's even, you know, we see almost, which I really like, this metaphysical point of the movie as well, of the nature surrounding being also a factor in all of this, and that it's something we, because it's not important, it's not about who is the enemy, who's fighting who. At the end, these are people, you know, who are stuck in insane situations and inhumane decisions, basically.
And it's a literal war in this case, but you know, it could stand in for any number of wars at home.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and I think this is what touched me from the first time I read the script, the universality of this.
Well, that's a great point to end on, and I want to again congratulate the both of you, and best of luck. You know, I mean, the whole thing, as I said before, it's just about getting people to see it. You know, the basic. I mean, Dušan, the reason you do this is for the audience.
Yeah.
Of course. You know, if people don't see it, you know, this. I mean, no, any film exists. You know, so. That was the idea, you know, just to make a film that people would like to see, you know, that's it, you know. So I hope that this Oscar campaign can help us, you know, that a lot of people to see this film, you know.
Thank you both again for joining us and for chatting about Darkling.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody watching, for joining us as well. And also, in order to keep up with upcoming Wrap screenings and events, be sure to take advantage of our free trial to Wrap Pro. You can catch up on any past screenings that you may have missed by visiting TheWrap.com and going to the screenings tab on the homepage. Thank you.